Satire inflates real life like a parade balloon until it pops under the pressure of its own contradictions, using irony and exaggeration to highlight the world's absurdities, and cinema has a long tradition of employing it to ridiculous effect. These are our picks for the 10 best satire films of all time. Most great satire takes high aim at those lofty institutions bearing down on us from atop towers of bullshit, bureaucracy, politics, and all your favorite isms. But we'll get to all that later. To start things off, we're looking intimate at those satires that poke and prod at the foundations of our very relationships. From Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice's send-up of free love, to The Graduate's dry lampooning of star-crossed lovers, from Force Majeure's biting exploration of fragility and resentment, to Eyes Wide Shut's pitch-black satire of insecurity. City of Women, Wild Grass, Love at the Top, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and Divorce Italian Style all take their own aim at the ways we love each other, or at least pretend to. But for our favorite satire of this sort, we're starting out our list with The Lobster.
Congratulations. The course of your relationship will be monitored closely by our staff and by me personally. If you encounter any problems, any tensions, any arguing that you cannot resolve yourselves, you will be assigned children. That usually helps a lot.
Aging spinsters and spinstettes are given one last chance to find love or face transformation into the animal of their choice to live out their days. With as dark and wry a satirical posture as can possibly be taken, Yorgos Lanthimos' breakout feature sets its deadpan targets on the societal pressures of monogamy with hardly a single wink to betray his sense of the absurd. Delivered in his trademark blunt style of on-the-nose dialogue, his characters speak every drip of subtext while facing the usually metaphorical threat of failing to conform, rendered physical and, well, bizarre. By creating a visceral analogy to running out of time, Lanthimos makes it crystal clear exactly how he feels about the entire concept of Till Death Do Us Part. Next up, we turn our focus from the unrealistic expectations of monogamy to the completely realistic ones presented by pop culture and the media. From the fashion industry of Zoolander and Pret-a-Porter, to Broadway and The Producers, to the music industry and This Is Spinal Tap, Nashville and A Mighty Wind, reality TV and The Truman Show, and porn in Boogie Nights. Media satires have set up the concept of fandoms in Galaxy Quest, and celebrity in general in films like Meet John Doe, The King of Comedy, and Natural Born Killers. But our favorite media takedowns look at the fourth estate. From print journalism in His Girl Friday and Sweet Smell of Success, to TV news in Broadcast News, A Face in the Crowd, and our number 9 pick, Network.
Listen to me. Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the boredom-killing business.
On just about the complete opposite end of the emotional spectrum of The Lobster's detached frigidity, Network is a screaming tea kettle in a boiler room of a nuclear reactor going supercritical as it plumbs the hollow soul of the media machine. When an aging news anchor's fitful threat of on-screen suicide proves to be just the ratings boost his network needed, strings tug puppets that tug other strings to orchestrate a worthy encore. Sidney Lumet conjures Paddy Chayefsky's escalating succession of passionate monologues into hulking cinematic form, transmuting them into the weight of an entire journalism industry coalescing into a fist with which it might pummel reality into submission such that it behaves in a way worth reporting on. Even more than mocking its little sibling TV, Hollywood loves making fun of itself. It's just the right amount of self-deprecation to justify an hour and a half of pure vanity. From Godard's Contempt to Stiller's Tropic Thunder, from Sturgis's Sullivan's Travels to Kaufman's Adaptation, State and Maine, The Day of the Locust, Man Bites Dog, even 21 Jump Street is a self-referential satire of the absurdity of reboots. Singin' in the Rain teases in the gentlest, most loving way, while Sunset Boulevard dresses it up in noir clothing. But it's Robert Altman's satire, The Player, that clinches this particular slot.
I was just thinking what an interesting concept it is to eliminate the writer from the artistic process. If we can just get rid of these actors and directors, maybe we got something here.
A heart-bearing love letter from Altman to the film industry that made him famous, chewed him up, spit him out, and then invited him back for more. The Player begins with an iconic 8-minute-long take that sets up the entirety of the plot along with its self-referential frame. The story of an ambitious studio exec played by a slick-haired Tim Robbins who seeks out a writer he suspects of sending him harassing postcards, then accidentally murders him. It's a star-studded parade of cameos that further blurs the line between real and make-believe in the land of make-believe, and it only gets blurrier from there. There is perhaps no auteur more qualified to render an indictment against his entire industry and more capable of executing it to its riotous potential than Altman was with The Player. Ever so slightly less sacred to Hollywood than itself, sometimes films set out to send up religion to absolutely no controversy ever. Critiquing Christianity in The Milky Way, Bruce Almighty and Dogma, Islam in Four Lions, spirituality in Schizopolis, and, hot take here, Fight Club, while our favorite of the religious satires pokes fun at Christianity and Judaism as a way of mocking religion in general in Monty Python's The Life of Brian.
Look, you've got it all wrong. You don't need to follow me. You don't need to follow anybody. You've got to think for yourselves. You're all individuals. Yes, we're all individuals. You're all different. Yes, we are all different. I'm not.
I know, it's hard to see how this is, in fact, a satire, and harder still to imagine the Monty Python gang engaging in wanton silliness, but beneath its straight-laced, docu-historical facade, Monty Python's Life of Brian is, in truth, a heavily coded farce. Life of Brian presented at the time cutting-edge archaeological findings that Jesus of Nazareth was born on the same day as, and next door to, another Israelite named Brian, who was frequently mistaken for the Son of God himself. This, of course, shook scholars from the Bible Belt to the Vatican, and raised all kinds of important questions. Were the miracles all correctly attributed to Jesus? Does humanity really need to be following anybody at all? Who really was Biggest Dickus? Alas, scholars, secular and religious alike, will be pondering these three questions for decades to come, as the Life of Brian is surely just as enjoyable and, more importantly, informative now as it ever was. Even less controversial than religion, we almost didn't include a category on racial satires because what's there to make fun of? But then, after exhaustive research conducted by tireless scholars on sleepless nights via peer-reviewed quick Google searches, turns out there actually are a few things. Like with District 9's apartheid allegory, Blazing Saddles' takedown of bigotry in the Wild West, or Django Unchained's smarmy upending of it, Black Dynamite parodying as it satirizes, Get Out horrifying, and Dear White People making the case that it is in fact Gremlins that is the racial satire we all deserve. But, with all apologies to Gremlins, it is Spike Lee who takes this slot, whose career is laced with racial satire from Do the Right Thing to Black Klansman, but never with a sharper bite than in 2000's Bamboozled.
You know, I grew up around black people my whole life. I mean, if the truth be told, I probably know is better than you. And don't go getting offended by my use of the quote-unquote N-word. I have a black wife and 2 biracial kids, so I feel I have a right. I don't give a goddamn what that prick Spike Lee says. Tarantino was right.
Bamboozled sees Spike Lee barring approximately 0 holds as he expands the satire of Sidney Lumet's network into the realm of race. Trapped in a contract with a network uninterested in portraying African Americans in a positive light, a TV writer attempts to get himself fired by pitching a modern-day minstrel show, complete with every stereotype in the book, including black actors in blackface. It goes predictably not awry, and the show gets very much made and is very much a smashing success. The film was way ahead of its time in its on-screen portrayal of racism as a system made up of individuals who serve simultaneously as both perpetrator and victim, without letting any one of us, audience included, off the hook. As long as we're building categories around things you ought to be talking about on first dates and Thanksgivings, let's not disappoint the internet and leave out politics. And oh god, where to start? Maybe by looking back into the past to escape the problems of today? Primary Colors will have you grateful we no longer practice scandal politics. Bulworth's populism will have you glad all our politicians are exclusively policy wonks. Being There will reassure you about their qualifications, and The Russians Are Coming won't ring even remotely familiar. Bob Roberts takes on fake folksy relatability, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington brilliantly tackles the manipulation of the political machine, and Team America World Police mines American exceptionalism to ridiculous length, but it's the political incompetence of In the Loop that snags our next slot.
Well, this is the number of combat troops available for an invasion according to these figures.
1,000?
Well, 12. 12 troops.
Oh, come on, you're shitting me.
I am shitting you.
Oh,
12,000 troops. 12,000 troops, but that's not enough. That's the amount that are going to die. And at the end of a war, you need some soldiers left, really, or else it looks like you've lost.
The spiritual forefather and older, meaner uncle of HBO's Veep, In the Loop sees the same creative team cut their teeth on the insane inanity of the run-up to the invasion of the Middle East in a way that will have you wondering what's worse, the selfishness or the stupidity, before gleefully interrupting you to ask, why the f*** not both? Composing grand opuses of obscenity with the craft of an artisan as if political machinery ran on fuel enriched from run-on sentences composed entirely of four-letter words. But swearing aside, the satire's brilliance is mostly in how the plot's machinations come together, how all the banality and buffoonery and petty self-interest adds up all of the little easily justifiable wrong decisions into an enormously catastrophic one that had no good excuse. Now, obviously we know that the US, and occasionally Britain, are all that matter in the world, and that we despise all foreign cinema, especially The Mirror, but we have foreign film quotas to meet on this list, so bear with us please. Mercifully, there are many good non-US political satires made in the US, like Duck Soup, Jojo Rabbit, and The Great Dictator, or at least in the UK, like The Death of Stalin. So we don't have to go too far outside everyone's comfort zone. Brazil and The Trial aren't explicitly about any particular country, but they focus on satirizing bureaucracy and totalitarianism, which obviously means they don't have anything to do with the US, while The Conformist satirizes a very specific kind of fascism out of Italy. But, unless you're a sicko for foreign culture, you should likely avoid satires like Fuse, about a small Bosnian village preparing for a visit from Bill Clinton by faking ethnic amity, or Welcome Mr. Marshall, about a small Spanish town preparing for a visit from American diplomats by faking ethnic authenticity. However, for our diversity pick, we turn instead to the Greeks for a satire about an entire country's political system faking justice from the film Z.
Comme si ça ne suffisait pas, que ce pays soit envahi par des voyous à cheveux longs, par des athées, des drogués au sexe indéfini. Maintenant, vous voulez mettre en cause les forces armées et la justice. Les seuls encore intacts dans ce pays pourri par les partis et le parlementarisme. Au moment même où on rêve de rénovation. Un pays sans parti, sans gauche ni droite. Un pays obéissant à Dieu et à son destin. Vous voulez tout pourrir.
Shot by Greek director in exile, Costa Gavras, Z is about as adoring of his home country as one would expect from an expatriate revolutionary artist banned from ever returning. A pacifist politician on the left is assassinated after defying the Greek government, and while officially ruled an accident, evidence begins to emerge as to the truth of the matter. Investigation follows evidence, and suppression follows investigation, and oh yeah, it all pretty much happened. And while In the Loop finds endless humor amidst the wrongdoings behind the closed doors of politics, Z's satire is of the much darker, modest proposal sort, taking on the tone of a taut, based on a true story political thriller with very little embellishment. Costa Gavras proves that sometimes all that's needed to make great satire is to reveal the goddamn truth and just let it mock itself. Pivoting from the boardroom to the battlefield, we next take a breather from the heaviness of politics with a category for a little light war. Catch-22 satirized the idea of sensible behavior in wartime. Oh Lucky Man sends up the attitudes of imperialism. MASH rendered the military in shades of juvenile buffoonery, while Pigs and Battleships mocked post-war occupation. Starship Troopers was an indictment of colonial warmongering so searing you might have missed it, and we're very sad not to pick it. But we think Paul Verhoeven is ever so slightly edged out by the lesser-known Stanley Kubrick, who's mocked war not once but twice in Full Metal Jacket, and our number 3 pick, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
Well, now, what happened is one of our base commanders, he had a sort of, well, he went a little funny in the head. You know, just a little funny. And he went and did a silly thing. Well, I'll tell you what he did. He ordered his planes to attack your country. Well, let me finish, Dimitri.
With an all-star cast consisting of Peter Sellers, George C. Scott, and an unbelievably young James Earl Jones, Stanley Kubrick's farcical tale of nuclear brinksmanship gone over the brink puts on grand display the biggest problem with all our nuclear security systems, that they are run by people. And here, Kubrick's people are hilariously grotesque in their fallibility, stupidity, egotism, and infantilism in such a way that has been proven sadly prophetic by recent history. But even as they are truly terrible leaders, they're all so terribly likable that it's almost fun watching them stumble their way into the apocalypse. In the filmography of an auteur who made a career of bitingly dry satires, Dr. Strangelove is perhaps Kubrick's most openly playful, managing to find sickening delight even and especially as the mushroom clouds bloomed. Our next category explores those satires questioning the sickening realities of advertising and capitalism in general. But first, a word from our sponsors. American Psycho sneers at the corporate boardroom while Office Space mocks middle management. The Wolf of Wall Street takes on the world of finance, while How to Get Ahead in Advertising and Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter tackle marketing. Thank You for Smoking is a brilliant jive at PRBS, while Modern Times sees Charlie Chaplin make a slapstick critique of capital's relationship with labor. However, this is the category we get to hand to Verhoeven for his other brilliant satire, RoboCop.
We keep robbing banks, but we never get to keep the money.
Takes money to make money. We steal money to buy coke, then sell the coke to make even more money. Capital investment, man.
Yeah, but why bother making it when we can just steal it?
There's no better way to steal money than free enterprise. Smoke?
Nah. You know, those things will kill you.
Yeah.
A megacorporation partners with local police to help bring under heel an out-of-control future Detroit and gets very rich while doing it. Although often enjoyed as an ultra-violent action romp, RoboCop is, in true Verhoeven fashion, very much positioned in critique of the violent media culture and the capitalist system that creates it, particularly inspired by the Reagan era during which it was made. Of course, contemporary viewers will be shocked, I tell you, to see that much of its criticism is still relevant. Gentrifiers attempting to displace residents of the inner city, a police force that is weaponized to the point of robotification, private companies taking over public services and then not acting in the public interest. Like I said, shocked. Verhoeven's RoboCop lays bare and unsubtle that which supports the unequal system benefiting the few rather than the many. Lots and lots of violence. Finally, we get to channel the inner Karl Marx you've always secretly suspected lay within us and carve out a category for class commentary. Done brilliantly across the decades from My Man Godfrey to Clueless to Idiocracy. But we're worried if we don't pick a foreign film in our top slot, you won't know how sophisticated we are. So, here we go. The great beauty cut through the petite bourgeois in Rome, the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie in France. Jacques Tati marveled at the bizarre contradictions of modernism in culture and class in most of his films, but especially Playtime. Bong Joon-ho has made a career of class satire, most notably in Parasite, as did Godard, especially in Le Weekend. The Rules of the Game is utterly brilliant and just misses this slot, in favor of the more impressive and more foreign-sounding La Dolce Vita.
Taina ha detto che tu hai due amori e che non sai scegliere fra I due. Giornalismo e letteratura. Attento alla prigione. Stai libero, disponibile, come me. Non sposate niente, non scelga mai. Anche nell'amore è meglio essere scelto. Great thing is to burn and not to freeze.
Marcello, a tabloid journalist, floats his way through a loosely connected series of episodes amidst post-war Rome's upper crust, dabbling in love and fame and high society. One of Fellini's many masterpieces, its satire is more lyrical than biting, although its name, The Sweet Life, betrays its inner irony. By all appearances, life is everything Marcello or anyone could have ever dreamed, but over and over, he comes up unsatisfied. The Sweet Life reveals itself as hollow and unsatisfying. How could so much mean so little? And that's the irony, that's the joke. A 3-hour series of beautiful poetic moments that fail to amount to what was promised. Just like Fellini's Society, it was all a giant farce, which is why we think it's one of the 10 best satire films of all time. So, what do you think? Disagree with any of our picks? Do we leave out any of your favorite satires? Let us know in the comments below and be sure to subscribe to IGN Movies and TV for more Cinefix movie lists.